When I got home from the doctor's office, Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway. I walked into our house, our beautiful townhouse that we decorated together, where we'd planned to raise children, where I'd felt safe and loved, and it felt like a mausoleum. Empty, cold. Every happy memory tainted by the knowledge that while I was being slowly murdered, my husband's first instinct was to defend my murderer. I called my best friend, Jamie, who I'd been neglecting for months because Sunday dinners and feeling constantly sick had consumed my life. "Elena?" She sounded worried the moment she heard my voice. "Oh my God, what's wrong?" "You sound terrible." And then I told her everything. The Sunday dinners, the sickness, the hospital, the toxicology report. Patricia's name came out of my mouth like poison itself. "Jesus Christ," Jamie breathed when I finished. "Elena, you need to get out of that house. Come stay with me. I can't just leave. This is my home. Your husband just abandoned you after finding out you've been poisoned. Where is he right now?" I didn't answer because I already knew. Marcus had gone to his parents' house, to his mother, the woman who'd been feeding me death on fine china for over a year. "I'm coming to get you," Jamie said firmly. "Pack a bag. You're not staying there alone." While I waited for her, I walked through the house in a daze. I found myself in the kitchen, staring at the refrigerator covered in photos. Our wedding day, our honeymoon in Tuscany, a Sunday dinner at the Ashford estate, where I was smiling at the camera, pale and thin but smiling, because I'd been trying so hard to fit in, to be the daughter-in-law Patricia wanted. I ripped that photo off the fridge and stared at Patricia standing behind me in the picture, her hand on my shoulder. Her smile was perfect, practiced, and her eyes, God, how had I never noticed how cold her eyes were? When I got home from the doctor's office, Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway. I walked into our house, our beautiful townhouse that we decorated together, where we'd planned to raise children, where I'd felt safe and loved, and it felt like a mausoleum. Empty, cold. Every happy memory tainted by the knowledge that while I was being slowly murdered, my husband's first instinct was to defend my murderer. I called my best friend, Jamie, who I'd been neglecting for months because Sunday dinners and feeling constantly sick had consumed my life. "Elena?" She sounded worried the moment she heard my voice. "Oh my God, what's wrong?" "You sound terrible." And then I told her everything. The Sunday dinners, the sickness, the hospital, the toxicology report. Patricia's name came out of my mouth like poison itself. "Jesus Christ," Jamie breathed when I finished. "Elena, you need to get out of that house. Come stay with me. I can't just leave. This is my home. Your husband just abandoned you after finding out you've been poisoned. Where is he right now?" I didn't answer because I already knew. Marcus had gone to his parents' house, to his mother, the woman who'd been feeding me death on fine china for over a year. "I'm coming to get you," Jamie said firmly. "Pack a bag. You're not staying there alone." While I waited for her, I walked through the house in a daze. I found myself in the kitchen, staring at the refrigerator covered in photos. Our wedding day, our honeymoon in Tuscany, a Sunday dinner at the Ashford estate, where I was smiling at the camera, pale and thin but smiling, because I'd been trying so hard to fit in, to be the daughter-in-law Patricia wanted. I ripped that photo off the fridge and stared at Patricia standing behind me in the picture, her hand on my shoulder. Her smile was perfect, practiced, and her eyes, God, how had I never noticed how cold her eyes were? I stayed at Jamie's apartment in Brooklyn for 3 days before the police called. Detective Sarah Morrison introduced herself as the lead investigator on my case. Her voice was professional but warm, like she actually gave a damn about what had happened to me. "Ashford, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some detailed questions about your relationship with your mother-in-law. Can you come down to the station?" I went alone. Marcus hadn't called since that first text. I'd tried reaching out once. "We need to talk," but he'd left me on red. The police station in Westchester was nothing like the gritty precincts you see on TV. It was clean, modern, almost corporate-looking. Detective Morrison met me in the lobby, along with her partner, Detective James Park. They led me to an interview room and offered me coffee, which I declined. I couldn't trust anything I didn't prepare myself anymore. Food, drinks, everything felt like a potential threat. "Let's start from the beginning," Detective Morrison said, opening a notebook. "When did you first meet Patricia Ashford?" I told them everything. The engagement, the wedding planning, how welcoming Patricia had seemed at first, the Sunday dinners, the escalating illness. Every detail I could remember. "And your husband's reaction when he learned about the poisoning?" Detective Park asked. I swallowed hard. He didn't believe me. He still doesn't. He thinks there's been some kind of mistake, that I'm being exposed to these substances somewhere else. Detective Morrison and Park exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "Mrs. Ashford," Morrison said carefully, "I want to be transparent with you. Cases like this are complicated. Poisoning is difficult to prove. We need to establish motive, opportunity, and means. We need concrete evidence, not just medical reports showing you were poisoned. I understand. We're going to need to execute a search warrant at your in-laws' residence. We'll be looking for the substances found in your system: arsenic, antifreeze, oleander. We'll also be looking at financial records, communications, anything that might establish motive." My stomach twisted. "Marcus is there right now, at his parents' house. We're aware. We've been surveilling the property since Dr. Chen filed his report. Your husband hasn't left in 3 days." The thought of Marcus holed up in that house, in the same space as the woman who'd been trying to kill me, made me feel sick all over again. Was she poisoning him too now? Turning him against me even more? Or was she just playing the grieving mother wrongly accused by her ungrateful daughter-in-law? "When will you execute the warrant?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. We want to catch the household off guard before anyone has a chance to dispose of evidence." Detective Morrison leaned forward. "Elena, I need you to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. Your husband's family is wealthy and well-connected. They'll have expensive lawyers, there will be media attention. Your life is about to become very public and very difficult." "My life has been difficult for the past year," I said quietly. "At least now I know why." The next morning, I didn't sleep. I sat in Jamie's living room, watching the clock tick towards 6 a.m., imagining what was happening at the Ashford estate. At 6:47 a.m., my phone rang. "Marcus." I almost didn't answer. But something compelled me to pick up. "How could you?" His voice was raw, destroyed. "How could you do this to my family?" "Marcus, the police are here. They're tearing apart my mother's house. They have a goddamn warrant, Elena. They're treating her like a criminal." "She is a criminal," the words burst out of me. "She's been poisoning me. You don't know that." "You have some test results that could mean anything, and you've decided to destroy my mother's life based on a hunch." "It's not a hunch, it's evidence. They're searching her kitchen, her bedroom, her garden. Do you understand how humiliating this is? My mother is in tears. My father is threatening to call our lawyer. And it's all because you couldn't just admit that maybe you have some kind of medical condition that has nothing to do with my family." I felt something break inside me. Some last thread of hope that my husband would eventually believe me, support me, choose me. "You know what, Marcus? You're right. This is my fault. I should have died quietly instead of figuring out what was happening to me. That would have been so much more convenient for everyone. That's not what I got. I'm done." My voice was surprisingly steady. "I'm done trying to convince you. I'm done defending myself. When the police find what I know they're going to find, you're going to have to live with the fact that you chose your mother over your wife. That you let her poison me for over a year and then blamed me for being sick." "Elena," I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Jamie appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a bathrobe, her hair messy from sleep. "Was that him?" I nodded, unable to speak. She crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. "You did the right thing." "Then why does it feel like my whole life is falling apart?" "Because it is," she said honestly. "But sometimes things have to fall apart before they can be put back together the right way. And honey, the way things were, that wasn't right. That was you slowly dying while everyone around you insisted you were fine." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Detective Morrison. We found something. Can you come to the station?" I got to the police station within an hour. Detective Morrison and Detective Park were waiting for me, and they looked grim? Excited? I couldn't tell. "Elena," Morrison said, "we executed the search warrant this morning. We found several concerning items at the Ashford residence." She opened a laptop and turned it toward me. Photos filled the screen. The first showed a container of rat poison in Patricia's garage. The label was clear. "Warning: contains arsenic. The second showed a bottle of antifreeze in the same garage, tucked behind some gardening supplies. The third showed Patricia's garden, specifically a section of oleander plants, their pink flowers beautiful and deadly. These substances match what was found in your system, Detective Park explained. Okay, but I tried to be rational, to think like Marcus would think. Lots of people have rat poison and antifreeze, and oleander is a common landscaping plant. You're right, Morrison said, which is why we kept looking. She clicked to the next photo, and my blood ran cold. It was a journal. The cover was elegant leather, the kind of thing you'd buy at an expensive stationery store. Patricia's initials were embossed in gold on the front, P.R.A. We found this in her bedroom, in a locked drawer of her nightstand. Morrison opened a folder and pulled out photocopied pages. Would you like to read it, or would you prefer I summarize? I'll read it, I whispered. The first entry was dated 3 months after my wedding. Marcus brought Elena to dinner again tonight. She wore that dreadful dress, the red one with the cheap fabric. I could see Marcus noticing other women at the club, women from good families who know how to dress appropriately. This girl is dragging down his reputation. I raised him to be with someone exceptional, not someone ordinary. I've decided I need to take action. If Elena were to become chronically ill, Marcus would see what a burden she is. He'd see that she's not strong enough to be an Ashford wife, not capable of bearing the Ashford children and maintaining our family standards. I've been reading about poisons. Nothing that would kill her quickly, that would be suspicious, but small amounts over time, just enough to make her weak and sick. Eventually, Marcus will realize what a mistake this marriage was. My hands trembled as I turned to the next page. Started today with the arsenic. Just a small amount mixed into her portion of the sauce. She won't taste it. I made the sauce quite rich. Let's see what happens. The entries continued, page after page. A meticulous log of dates, substances, amounts, and my reactions. Week 3. Elena looked positively green during dessert. Success. Week 7. She's lost noticeable weight. Marcus commented on it. I suggested she might be anorexic, planting seeds. Week 12. Added antifreeze to her wine. Just a tablespoon. She complained about a metallic taste but finished the glass. Polite to a fault, this one. Week 20. She went to the doctor. Good. The more medical tests that come back normal, the more she'll look like a hypochondriac. Marcus is starting to seem frustrated with her constant illness. Week 35. Experimented with oleander tea today. Brewed it and added it to her soup. Strong reaction. She barely made it to the bathroom. Perhaps that was too much. Must be more careful. There were pages and pages of entries. Over a year's worth of systematic, calculated poisoning, documented like a science experiment. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Detective Park pushed a trash can toward me just in time for me to vomit. I'm sorry, Morrison said quietly. I know this is a lot to process. She wrote it all down. I managed between gasps. Why would she document it? Narcissism, Park suggested. She was proud of what she was doing. She thought she was protecting her son, maintaining her family's standards. In her mind, she was the hero of this story. We arrested Patricia Ashford this morning at 8:15 a.m., Morrison continued. She's been charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and criminal poisoning. She's being held without bail. What did she say when you arrested her? The detectives exchanged glances. She said, and I quote, Morrison read from her notes, "That girl was never good enough for my son. I did what any mother would do." The media got hold of the story within hours. Wealthy Westchester maitresse, accused of poisoning daughter-in-law, she wasn't good enough. Socialite allegedly poisoned son's wife. For over a year, Sunday dinners became deadly. Inside the Ashford poisoning case, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, people I hadn't spoken to in years, distant relatives suddenly concerned about my well-being. I turned it off and stayed hidden in Jamie's apartment, watching the news coverage with a morbid fascination. They showed photos of Patricia being led out of her home in handcuffs, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses, her lawyer shouting, "No comment," to the swarm of cameras. They showed pictures of the Ashford estate, the Sunday dining room where I'd been slowly murdered week after week. They showed my wedding photo, Patricia and I smiling side by side, her hand on my shoulder like a loving mother-in-law. "How does it feel?" Jamie asked, sitting beside me on the couch. "Seeing everyone finally believe you?" "Surreal," I admitted. "For so long I thought I was crazy. Or weak. Or both. And Marcus, have you heard from him?" I shook my head. Not since that awful phone call the morning of the arrest. I'd seen a statement from his lawyer though, Mr. Ryu. "Ashford is devastated by these allegations against his mother and requests privacy during this difficult time." Not a word about his wife, not an apology, just devastation that his mother had been caught. That told me everything I needed to know about my marriage. Patricia's lawyer tried everything to get the charges dismissed. He argued that the journal was fiction, creative writing, that Mrs. Ashford did as a hobby. He claimed the substances found at the house were for legitimate purposes. He suggested that I had somehow poisoned myself for attention, or that I had a factitious disorder like Munchausen syndrome. But the evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Chin testified about my medical records and the clear pattern of illness correlating with Sunday dinners. Toxicologists explained how the substances found in Patricia's possession exactly matched what was in my system. Handwriting experts confirmed the journal was Patricia's. And then there was the journal itself, page after page of detailed, damning entries that no reasonable person could dismiss as fiction. The prosecution painted Patricia as a narcissistic, controlling woman who saw me as a threat to her vision of her son's perfect life. They showed evidence of her obsession with social status, newspaper clippings about Marcus's achievements, scrapbooks comparing him to other eligible bachelors from wealthy families, emails to friends discussing how she'd always envisioned him marrying someone from our circle. I wasn't from her circle. I was a girl from Queens with a state school degree and student loans. I didn't speak fluent French or know which spoon to use for soup or have a pedigree that stretched back to the Mayflower. So she tried to erase me, slowly, methodically, one Sunday dinner at a time. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 2 days, recounting every Sunday dinner, every instance of illness, every time Patricia had served my plate with that cold smile. Defense attorneys tried to rattle me, suggesting I was lying, that I was after the Ashford money, that I had made myself sick for sympathy. "Mrs. Ashford," Patricia's lawyer said during cross-examination, "isn't it true that you felt inadequate in your marriage? That you struggled to fit into the Ashford family's lifestyle?" "Yes," I admitted. "And isn't it possible that these feelings manifested as physical symptoms? That your illness was psychosomatic? All in your head?" I looked directly at the jury. Arsenic isn't psychosomatic. Antifreeze isn't in my head. The journal isn't a figment of my imagination. I didn't make myself sick, she did. The courtroom was silent. Marcus sat in the back row every day, his face drawn and gray. He never looked at me. Not once. His father, Richard, sat beside him, stoic and silent. They were supporting Patricia, standing by her even as the evidence mounted. On the day the verdict came in, I almost didn't go to the courthouse. Jamie had to convince me. "You need to be there," she insisted. "You need to see this through." The jury deliberated for 9 hours. When they filed back in, the 4 women looked exhausted but resolute. In the case of the People versus Patricia Reed Ashford, on the count of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of aggravated assault in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of criminal poisoning, how do you find? Guilty. Patricia didn't react. She sat perfectly still, her face a mask of composure even as the guilty verdicts rolled in. Only when the judge ordered her remanded into custody pending sentencing did she finally break. She turned to look at Marcus, tears streaming down her face. "I did it for you," she called out as the bailiffs led her away. "Everything was for you." Marcus dropped his face into his hands. I walked out of the courthouse into a sea of cameras and reporters shouting questions. My lawyer guided me to a waiting car, but before I got in, I turned to face the cameras. "I just want to say one thing," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "If you feel like something is wrong, if your body is telling you something is wrong, trust yourself. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being dramatic or crazy or weak. I almost died because I didn't trust my own instincts. I hope no one else makes that mistake. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The judge was harsh in his remarks. Mrs. Ashford, you systematically poisoned your daughter-in-law over an extended period, documenting her suffering as though it were a science experiment. Your actions were calculated, cruel, and motivated by nothing more than snobbery and a sense of entitlement. You showed no remorse throughout this trial. This court finds your actions particularly heinous because they were committed in the context of family, a relationship built on trust that you exploited to carry out your crimes. 15 years. She'd be 73 when she got out. Richard Ashford filed for divorce 3 weeks after sentencing. Apparently, having a wife in prison for attempted murder was bad for the family reputation. He released a statement saying he was shocked and horrified by Patricia's actions and that he stood by the victim in this tragic case. Too little, too late. As for Marcus, we met one final time, 6 weeks after his mother's sentencing. He asked if we could talk, and against Jamie's advice, I agreed. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Manhattan, far from Westchester and the Ashford estate and all those Sunday dinners. He looked like he'd aged a decade. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt. He'd lost weight. I owe you an apology, he started, his voice rough. I should have believed you. When you first got sick, when you collapsed, when the doctors said you'd been poisoned, I should have believed you immediately. But I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that my own mother would. He trailed off, staring into his coffee. She tried to kill me, Marcus, for over a year. And you defended her. I know. You chose her over me, even when I was in the hospital, even when there was medical evidence. You chose her. I know, he repeated, and his voice broke. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Elena, I've been in therapy, trying to understand how I let this happen. My therapist says I was in denial. That accepting what my mother did meant accepting that my entire childhood, my entire family was built on a lie. She says I couldn't handle that reality, so I rejected it. Good for your therapist, I said coldly. Where was that insight when I needed you? He flinched. I'm asking for your forgiveness. Not today, maybe not for a long time, but eventually. I want to fix our marriage. I want us to get past this. I stared at this man I'd loved, this man I'd married, this man who'd abandoned me when I needed him most. Marcus, when I was at my lowest point, when I was literally being poisoned, you weren't there. You didn't protect me, you didn't believe me. You chose your mother's reputation over my life. I took a shaky breath. I can't be married to someone who would do that. I can't trust you. And without trust, there's no marriage to fix. So that's it? We're done? We've been done since the moment you walked out of Dr. Chen's office. I stood up to leave. He grabbed my hand. Elena, please, I love you. I looked down at his hand on mine, the hand that should have held me through the worst experience of my life, but instead let me go. You love your version of me, the version that fit neatly into your family, the version that smiled through Sunday dinners and never complained. But that version was dying, Marcus. Your mother was killing her, and you let it happen. I pulled my hand away and walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back. It's been 8 months since Patricia's conviction. 8 months of therapy, healing, and learning to trust food again. Learning to trust people again. Learning to trust myself again. I filed for divorce. Marcus didn't contest it. He signed the papers without a fight, which somehow hurt, even though it was what I wanted. Our marriage was officially dissolved 4 months ago. I don't eat at restaurants yet. Maybe someday. For now, I cook all my own meals in Jamie's kitchen. I'm still staying with her. I couldn't go back to the townhouse. Couldn't sleep in that bed where Marcus and I used to plan our future. I prepare everything myself, from scratch. It's therapeutic in a way. Taking control of what goes into my body. The physical effects of the poisoning are mostly gone. My hair grew back. I gained back the weight I'd lost. The metallic taste finally disappeared. But Dr. Chen warned me there might be long-term effects. Liver damage, kidney issues, neurological problems. I get blood work done every 3 months to monitor for complications. The psychological effects are harder to measure. I have nightmares about Sunday dinners. I sometimes wake up in a panic, convinced I'm being poisoned again. I can't be around older women without analyzing their expressions, looking for that cold calculation I missed in Patricia's eyes. But I'm alive. That's what matters. I survived. The media attention has mostly died down, though true crime podcasts still cover the case, the Westchester poisoner they call Patricia. I've been asked to do interviews, to write a book, to appear on talk shows. I've declined everything. This isn't a story I want to profit from. It's just my life, the nightmare I lived through, and the person I'm becoming on the other side of it. Jamie thinks I should try dating again. Not everyone is a poisonous monster, she jokes. Then immediately apologizes because humor about poison is still too soon. Maybe someday I'll be ready to trust someone again, to let someone into my life, into my heart, into my kitchen. But not yet. For now, I'm focusing on myself, on healing, on the court-mandated restitution payments from Patricia, though I don't expect to see much of that money. Legal fees ate through most of the Ashford fortune. On my career, which I've thrown myself into with renewed passion. On rebuilding a life that's entirely my own, free from Sunday dinners and family obligations and mothers-in-law who smile while serving you death. Last week, I got a letter from Patricia. It was forwarded through my lawyer. I have a restraining order, so she can't contact me directly. My lawyer advised me not to read it, but I did anyway. It was a single page, written in her elegant handwriting. Elena, I want you to know that I don't regret my actions. I did what I believed was necessary to protect my son from a marriage that was beneath him. You were never going to be an Ashford. Not really. You didn't have the breeding, the education, the sophistication. I gave Marcus the best of everything his entire life. I wasn't going to let someone like you ruin that. I do regret getting caught. I regret that my plan didn't work before you figured it out, but I don't regret trying to remove you from my son's life. Any mother would have done the same. You've destroyed my family. I hope you're satisfied. Patricia. I burned the letter in Jamie's kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken, Patricia's words turning to ash. She still doesn't get it. After everything, the arrest, the trial, the conviction, 15 years in prison, she still thinks she was right, still thinks I was the problem, still can't see the monster she became. But that's not my burden to carry anymore. I'm done trying to be good enough for people who will never accept me. I'm done making myself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I'm done apologizing for surviving. Patricia tried to erase me, one Sunday dinner at a time. But I'm still here, and that's my victory.